So we're looking at the last few weeks of D1A action and several games that have a really big effect on seedings. I think we're really close to the top 16 teams, the 8 in the West, the 8 in the East that'll play in their quarterfinal, semifinal, final to create your East winner and your West winner, who will meet in Houston first weekend in May at Aviva Stadium to crown a champion. But who plays who in what week? Well, we were looking to figure that out. So let's have a look, first of all, at a nail-biter, a back-and-forth game, a crazy game, St. Mary's versus Central Washington. This one came right down to the wire.
Some key carries here put St. Mary's back in front. Mario Storti down the right wing, and then a great little shimmy and run from Dom Bisag, both of those Schultz Award nominees, and then the inside ball, Kaipono Koyashi. And it is 27-21, still time for Central Washington, and they can win with a converted try. But here, St. Mary's looks like they're trying to get out of it. They'll be all right. And then Calvin Luilamaga intercepts that ball, almost gets to the line, doesn't quite. And what you'll see on the right-hand side is on the wing, Isaiah Samara Saldana calling for the ball. He's absolutely right. Hey, yeah, give it to me. But here's the problem. He's going to score in the corner. Trust us, he does actually get there. Too wide out for Jack Trigoni to get the conversion. 1 point shy. 27-26 St. Mary's.
So wow, just 1 point in it. Would it be the same with old rivals Life and Lindenwood? Seemed like it for most of the game. It could well possibly be that close. These two teams no longer in the same conference anymore. Life is now Rugby East. Lindenwood is in the Midwest. But they play each other all the time. They know each other very, very well. And this one, well, it was a bit of a comeback for Life.
So at this point, we're well into the second half. Lindenwood's leading 20-12, but they're starting to get on the back foot a little bit. And here in this maul, Life does a really nice job of driving it over. Everybody getting involved. Excellent maul. Try for Life, and that puts them within 3 at 20-17. Now we spent a really long time inside Lindenwood's 22. Lindenwood's defense is really good. They defend their line excellently. They do end up giving up a penalty right in front of the post, and Life opts not to take the obvious 3 points that would have tied the game, instead run it, and they fail. But finally the ball gets cleared by Lindenwood, only for Ismail Safodian to pick up just around the ruck. Everyone's looking for them to go somewhere else, and off he goes about 50 meters under the post. So now it's suddenly Life is in front 24-20, and as time winds down, they maul it over for another try. 31-20 is the final score.
One of the things about D1A that we've discovered the last few years, I've mentioned it a few times, I really want to mention it again because it's fascinating to me partly, is the idea that for years people who were looking at the likes of Cal, St. Mary's winning championships, that, hey, we in the East, especially the Northeast or the Midwest, the colder areas, cannot win these championships because we play most of our season in the fall, and then you wait for a while, and then you go into the playoffs in the spring. Well, you know what? It's not necessarily correct. Certainly not correct anymore. Army won it 2 years ago, getting a warm-up season going. Navy won it. Now, Navy's not super north, but still East Coast. Still takes a while before they're able to go on the field. Great warm-up season. So this game I thought was interesting because it was two teams that really wanted to make a splash for two different reasons. Navy had their time off and want to come back and hold on to that number one ranking that they've held on to all season long. And Mount St. Mary's had a pretty good league season, but had slipped up a couple of times. Key one, Mary Washington. They want to put that away. They want to put that result to bed and come back and say, hey, we're good enough to make that those playoffs. So Mount St. Mary's against Navy. You might think that Navy is going to win that one big. Turned out to be much closer than a lot of people thought.
Well, Navy is becoming more of a complete team, able to attack on the outside, but really still their bread and butter is some of that close-in work near the try line, able to punch it over. And then we see Max Smith sell a dummy, unleash a sidestep. Nice try from the center. But it comes down to the big boys up front. Really nice maul here. You expect them to maul. And yes, they can do that and score that way. Mount St. Mary's didn't lay down. They ended up 32-20. Hayden Mackay is having a great season. Sets up this attack that is finally finished on the outside by Mount's backs. Really good showing from Mount St. Mary's. But yes, Navy wins. Navy stays number one.
Speaking of military academies, surprising people, Cal made the trip across country to play at Army, and I think one of the knocks on Cal year after year is that they do travel, but they don't travel a lot, and I think you'll see the majority of their games every year are at home. And even when you say, well, that's an away game, they're going to Moraga to play St. Mary's, they're going to Palo Alto to play Stanford or something like that. Well, okay, it's not a long trip. This one, clear across the country from generally warm and sunny California to cold and wet and unpleasant to play in upstate New York, Hudson Valley. And boy, was it unpleasant in terms of the weather? Absolutely. Was it a barn burner of game? Yes, it was a battle. It was tight. It was Army's day.
Certainly this was a game of momentum shifts and key moments. Johnny Haley nicely on point with a very tough penalty goal to open the scoring. The maul crucial in punishing Cal penalties, and here goes Army driving it over. Dominic Tianga is ultimately going to be the man to touch it down in that big pile. Huge try. You see they're pumped up for this one. Opportunistic stuff as well, and Solomon Williams, keep an eye on this player. Scrum half for Cal, fantastic try, fantastic form for him, and then another maul, another try. Army wins it.
We're looking at up-and-comers as well, and I think that one of those would be Cal Poly. Certainly, along with Mount St. Mary's, these are teams that are bubbling up and saying, hey, what about us? Cal Poly has really done very well with that, playing very well in that conference. Then they go up against St. Mary's. What happens there?
Cal Poly scored a couple of tries early in this game, and they had St. Mary's on their heels a little bit. But the thing about St. Mary's that we don't really talk about much is how patient they are on defense and how they're willing to absorb pressure. And then they'll turn it around, and here they do. Really good 8-man pick. Starts it off, and then they go wide. And they consolidate so well. They work so hard. The fitness very strong. And what's going to happen here? And really, it's not going to take too long. They're in striking distance. They're just barely inside the Cal Poly half. But for St. Mary's, this is striking distance. And you see hard lines, really good dummy, and through a little shake and bake in for the try. Big win for St. Mary's against a very tough opponent.
Another up-and-comer, UCLA, beats Arizona. That's a big one. Let's have a look at that game, because that was a statement for UCLA. They hadn't beaten Arizona in a while. They thought they were good enough to do that, strong enough to do that, weren't able to do that.
At this point in the game, UCLA is leading 22-13. Arizona in a little bit of trouble, but what you're going to see is a really nice give and go on a counter. Jacob Hall starting it and finishing it, getting tackled, but the support is there. Really good work from the Arizona forwards, really, to support this and look for chances out wide. Yeah, check out the spin move from Jack Breesland, the number 8, almost gets over. And then quick ball, good recycle. Joey Lewis takes the short, flat pass and is in under the post. Makes it 22-20, and now we've got a game right on the wire. How did UCLA respond? Well, they kind of didn't. Arizona had them under so much pressure for so long. They just hung in there, and then this beautiful opportunistic play. Jacob Friedman just intercepts the pass off the back of the lineout, goes in. And if you take another closer look at the concentration, jumping right in. He is onside. The ball has left the lineout. That makes it 29-20, and UCLA adds a penalty goal to seal it 32-20.
And then bouncing out of that, UCLA goes and plays Central Washington in a game that I think was pretty close. Central Washington wins this one 38-19.
And here we are in the first half. It's 19-7 right now, Central Washington leading. UCLA has had the ball for quite a while and looks like they're probing in, and chance of scoring a try is really would put them back in the game. But instead, a high tackle in midfield. It's going to be a Central Washington line out, and they will brutally and very directly just take it straight to the Bruins. Line out win. Maul is taken down, but they're just going to go straight ahead, and hooker Campbell Robb will take that little tips pass and go over. That's going to make it 26-7, and that's a really good ceiling try for Central Washington.
And finally, let's take a look at, most recently, a couple of games that are of importance. Mount St. Mary's then goes across country to play Grand Canyon. That's a game that is of interest in terms of seeding, because you want to have a look at some of these teams to say, where do they measure up against like seeded teams, the 6, 7, 8, 9 seed type teams, 9 being a team that's not able to break into the top 8 in their region. Mount St. Mary's won this game. Hayden Mackay probably put his hand up for the nomination for the Schultz Award from that game. He'd been playing great so far, but I think that was a big one for him, 3 tries in that game. And then Central Washington against BYU. Central had already lost by that 1 point against St. Mary's. And then they played BYU. BYU had already beaten Cal. Where does everyone stack up? BYU has not played St. Mary's yet. Central Washington hosts BYU, manages to win that game. So, hey, let's take a look at that. What do you think the seeding should be at this point? We still have a couple of weeks of games, so we can't really just sort of chalk it up. But what might it look like at the moment? I still think there's a question mark in the sense that Cal does a very good job of flipping the script a little bit late in the season. They're always working to analyze their performance and change it, and I think they definitely did that last year. They didn't look like a team that was going to make the final in early March. They made the final, and they lost in a really, really close game. So St. Mary's Cal, it's going to be an interesting one, an important game. Lindenwood and Central Washington play. That'll be really fun to see how everybody stacks up there. On the East, I think we've seen... First of all, Life has beaten just about everybody and was the closest team to Navy. And I think Navy and Life, you're probably going to see, are the top 2 seeds. Who fills in after that? And there's a lot of argument for these Rugby East teams that are very good. Army made a massive statement after a not-so-great fall to say, hey, we deserve to be in that conversation. Mount St. Mary's, should they be in that conversation? What about Davenport, which is a solid team? Arkansas State is playing an independent schedule. How high should they be? I think they should be in, but how high? Their score against Life was essentially the same as Lindenwood. So what's the question there? And they split their games with Lindenwood. So again, a question mark. You look at it and say, who's peaking at the right time? Something like that. And on the West, again, who gets into the 6, 7, 8 area? Do we see, we've got Grand Canyon, Cal Poly, UCLA, and Arizona. I think no more than 3 of those teams get in to the playoffs. Which 3? Well, I'm pretty sure UCLA is one of them. And so then the question, the funny thing is, we didn't see Arizona play Grand Canyon this year in first versus first. Would have loved to have seen that. So this is perhaps what the playoffs might look like. Have a look at some of these brackets and see what you think. This is just speculation on my part. I don't have anything more than a tiny, tiny influence on it. My rankings are used in D1A's official rankings, but they are by no means heavily influential. So, yeah, have a look. Have a look and guess, and that's what I'm doing. So thanks, everybody, to our sponsors. Thanks to our supporters as well. If you want to support Goff Rugby Report and what we do every week, every day, go to goffrugbyreport.com/support-GRR, and you can support us financially, and you can just perhaps click on a few ads or support our advertisers. All of that helps a great deal. Thank you very much.